Have you noticed that the most self-aware generation in history is also the most lost? We've spent decades mapping our traumas, naming our patterns, decoding our triggers. We know our personality type, our moon sign, our love language by heart. We know our childhood wounds and can explain with clinical precision why we react a certain way in every situation. And yet, at the end of the day, when all the theories fall silent, that uncomfortable feeling remains. Who am I really? It's as if we are archaeologists of our own existence, digging layer after layer of self-knowledge, hoping to find the ultimate treasure, our true identity. But the more we dig, the more fragments we find. Never the whole treasure, never the definitive answer. The promise was simple: know yourself and you will be free. If you understand your patterns, you can change them. If you name your emotions, you can control them. If you discover your life's mission, you will find meaning. Modernity has turned self-knowledge into a secular religion, complete with gurus, rituals, and the promise of salvation. But there is something disturbing about this equation. Why does a society obsessed with self-knowledge produce record levels of existential anxiety? Why are those who analyze themselves the most the ones who feel the most lost? Perhaps because we are looking for something that never existed. 2,500 years ago, a man sitting under a tree came to a radical conclusion that challenges our entire culture of self-knowledge. Buddha did not discover who he was. He discovered that he was nobody. And paradoxically, that is what set him free. Imagine a person spending their entire life searching for a city that exists only on a map. They consult tourist guides, hire geography experts, invest in increasingly sophisticated navigation equipment. They obsessively study the history of this city, know every street described in the documents, every tourist attraction promised in the brochures. They become a true expert on the subject. They can talk for hours about this mysterious city. But the city never existed. It was a printing error on the original map, faithfully reproduced in all subsequent copies. Generations of explorers have dedicated their lives to searching for a place that only exists on paper. This is our modern condition. We are experts on ourselves, but what we seek may be the greatest collective mirage in human history. Look at the shelves of any bookstore. Hundreds of manuals promising that you can discover yourself. Find your true self. Awaken your authenticity. Connect with your essence. Discover who you really are. The language varies, the techniques multiply, but the premise is always the same. There is a real, authentic, and unchanging version of you waiting to be found somewhere deep in your psyche. We grow up believing that we are like onions. We just need to patiently peel away the false layers imposed by society, family, and circumstances to finally reach the true core, our pure and unaltered essence. We spend years, sometimes decades, methodically peeling away. We remove our parents' expectations, social conditioning, learned fears, social masks, and the roles we play. We peel away layer after layer, always hoping to find the authentic me at the center, that version of ourselves that exists independently of any external influence. But what if there is no center? What if we are more like clouds, temporary formations that appear solid and defined when viewed from a distance, but dissolve into vapor when we get closer to investigate? The self-help industry makes billions of dollars every year selling tools for an archaeological dig at a fundamentally empty site. Therapies to discover who you really are. Spiritual retreats to connect with your inner essence. Online courses to align yourself with your life purpose. Each method promises to be the final key, the definitive technique, the last step in your journey of self-discovery. And it works but for a while. You have powerful insights, genuine moments of clarity, euphoric feelings of now I finally understand who I really am. This certainty temporarily fills the existential void. You walk through the world with a new sense of solid identity. But that certainty always slips through your fingers like water. Soon a new doubt arises, a new inconsistency, a new layer to be investigated. You realize that discovery about yourself no longer makes as much sense. A new tool to be tried, a new guru to be followed, a new technique to be mastered emerges. What we don't realize is that our own obsessive search may be artificially creating what we think we are discovering naturally. It's like a person looking in a mirror in a house of mirrors, infinitely multiplying their own image, completely losing track of which reflection is real and which are distortions created by the mirrors. Have you noticed how the people most obsessed with finding themselves are precisely those who change their minds most radically about who they are? Today they identify as contemplative introverts. Tomorrow they discover they are repressed extroverts. Yesterday they were misunderstood artists fighting the system. Today they are visionary entrepreneurs embracing capitalism. With each new discovery about themselves, the person they were before seems to have been just a temporary illusion. But what if all these versions were equally illusory? What if the very question, who am I, were the real problem, not the solution? There is a disturbing experiment that psychologists conduct with young children. They show them objects with undefined shapes, something between a cup and a bowl, for example, and ask, "What is this?" Very young children simply interact with the object. They use it to drink, to store things, to play. They feel no need to classify it. But as they grow older and master language, something is lost. They begin to hesitate in front of the ambiguous object. "But is it a cup or a bowl?" they ask, distressed. They need to classify it before they can use it. Language, this tool that should set us free, becomes an invisible prison. Now look at yourself. How many times a day do you ask yourself, "Am I an anxious person or am I just anxious today? Am I introverted or extroverted? Am I creative or analytical?" Language has taught us that we need to be something specific, fit into defined categories, have a clear label stuck on our foreheads. But life doesn't work in fixed categories. Have you ever tried to define exactly where the day ends and night begins? Or where your skin ends and the air begins? The boundaries that seem so obvious in language dissolve when looked at closely. The problem is that our minds have been conditioned to function like obsessive-compulsive archivists. Every experience must be immediately classified, labeled, and stored in the appropriate drawer. That's a happy memory. That was a moment of anger. I'm a person who likes coffee. I'm someone who can't wake up early. This mental archivist works 24 hours a day, creating detailed files about who you are. And then you go to the file, consult these files, and think, so that's how I am. But who created the files? Who decided on the categories? What if the archivist is lying? Language has given us the extraordinary power to symbolize, abstract, and communicate complex ideas. But it has also given us something insidious, the illusion that symbols are reality. It's like confusing the map with the territory, but even worse, it's confusing the map with the person reading the map. When a child learns the word "I," something fundamental changes in their experience. Before, there were only experiences flowing: hunger, heat, movement, colors, sounds. After the word "I," there is someone having these experiences. Language retroactively creates a protagonist for the story that was already happening, and that protagonist quickly becomes the most important character in the narrative. I like that. I don't like that. I'm good at that. I'm bad at that. With each sentence, that linguistic "I" gains more substance, more apparent reality, more personal history. But watch a real conversation. How many times do people use the word "I" in 5 minutes? It's almost hypnotic. I think that, I believe that, I never. We are constantly reinforcing the existence of this central character, like an actor who needs to constantly remind themselves what role they are playing. If you pay attention, and that's what I invite you to do now as you read these words, you'll notice that your mind is automatically creating a version of you who is reading this. A person with opinions about what is being said, with a personal history that validates or contradicts these ideas, with expectations about where this is going. But who is this person? Where are they located? When exactly did they appear? And most disturbingly, are they really reading these words, or are the words being read? The difference seems subtle, but it is revolutionary. It is one thing to think I am reading. It is quite another to notice reading is happening. One creates a solid protagonist. The other reveals a flowing process. Buddha realized that our language is structured around a fundamental lie. The idea that there is someone doing something to someone else. Subject, verb, object, I read this text. But what if there is no I, no text, no reading as separate entities? What if there is only a stream of experience that our language artificially fragments? It's like trying to describe a symphony by classifying each note separately. You can catalog all the instruments, all the notes, all the rhythms. But the music, what really matters, exists in the relationship between the sounds, not in the isolated sounds. When you try to locate exactly where the you are looking for is, where does your attention go first? For most people, the answer is immediate. The body, here in this form that moves through the world, that sees through these eyes, that feels through this skin. It's obvious, you think. I am my body. But then something disturbing happens when you investigate more closely. Close your eyes for a moment and try to feel your hands. Don't look at them, just feel them. What exactly are you feeling? Tingling, warmth, weight, pressure against the surface they're resting on. Now a strange question. Who is feeling these sensations? Where is this feeler located? If you are your hands, how can you feel your hands? If you are your body, who observes your body? It's like an eye trying to see itself. There's something structurally impossible about this operation. Furthermore, which version of your body is really you? The body you had when you were 5, 15, 30? The body you have now? The body you will have 20 years from now? Billions of cells in your body die and are reborn constantly. You are literally a different body every few years. If you are your body, which one? Perhaps then you are your emotions. that internal whirlwind of joys, sorrows, fears, and anger that colors every moment of your experience. I am a sensitive person, you say. I am someone who gets emotional easily. Emotions seem much more intimate than the body, closer to who you really are. But look closely at an emotion. Take the last time you felt anger. Where was it located? How long did it last exactly? When did it start and when did it end? Can you hold an emotion, keep it fixed, prevent it from changing? It's like trying to hold water in your hands. Even stranger, who observes your emotions? When you say, I'm sad, who is reporting that sadness? If you are sadness, how can you be aware of being sad? There is something observing the emotion that cannot be the emotion itself. So maybe you are your thoughts, that constant internal conversation, that voice in your head that comments on everything, plans, remembers, judges, questions. I think, therefore I am, said Descartes. Your thoughts seem to be the most intimate and personal thing there is. But try this. For one whole minute, try not to think about the word elephant. Difficult, isn't it? If you control your thoughts, why can't you just turn them off? If you are your thoughts, who decides which thoughts to think? Also notice where your thoughts come from. Do you consciously decide each thought before you think it? Or do they just pop into your consciousness from some unknown place? It's as if there's a mysterious factory producing thoughts and sending them to your mind, but you've never seen the factory in operation. And when you are fast asleep without dreams, where are your thoughts? Do you cease to exist every night and come back to existence in the morning? Well, then maybe you are your choices, your decisions, your will, that which you want, that which you choose, that which you decide. I choose to watch this video. I decide to eat this food. I want to change my life. Your decisions seem to prove definitively that you exist. After all, who else could be choosing? But here's another disturbing experiment. Try wanting something different from what you want right now. If you're thirsty, try genuinely wanting not to drink water. If you like chocolate, try really wanting to dislike it. You can pretend, you can repress, you can rationalize. But can you directly change what you want? Your desires are no more controllable than your thoughts or emotions. They arise from a complex network of conditioning, past experiences, brain chemistry, social influences. You don't choose your desires, they choose you. Perhaps then you are your consciousness, your ability to be aware of all this. The awareness that observes the body, emotions, thoughts, desires. This presence that witnesses all internal phenomena. I am the one who observes, you conclude. I am the pure consciousness behind all experiences. But then the most perplexing question of all arises. Who is conscious of consciousness? If you can observe your own awareness, be aware of being aware, then there is something beyond even the consciousness you think you are. It's like endless Russian dolls. Each layer you identify as you reveals a deeper layer observing that identification. And when you try to locate the ultimate observer, it slips through your fingers like mercury. Body, emotions, thoughts, desires, consciousness. None of these can be found when investigated directly. And yet something is here, reading these words, following this line of reasoning, having this experience of questioning its own existence. And then something extraordinary happens when you finally stop searching. Imagine you've spent decades digging a tunnel in search of buried treasure. Your hands are bloody, your back hurts. You've invested everything in this obsessive excavation. Every tool has been tested, every method tried, every inch of ground investigated. And suddenly someone taps you gently on the shoulder and whispers, "The treasure was never buried. It's been around you all along." First reaction, visceral anger, absolute disbelief. Impossible. I've dedicated my entire life to this search. I have maps, I have evidence, I'm sure it's down here. Second reaction, paralyzing existential vertigo. If there is no treasure to be found, who are you without the search? Your entire identity was built around being someone searching for yourself. But then, in the third reaction, something completely unexpected, a deep, silent relief, like a fever that finally breaks after months of suffering. Like letting go of a weight you've been carrying for so long that you've completely forgotten what it's like to walk without it. Buddha called this the cessation of suffering. But it's not the end of some dramatic, obvious pain. It's the end of a subtle, constant tension that you didn't even realize you were carrying. The tension of always searching for yourself, always trying to figure out who you are, always questioning whether you're being authentic enough, always with that uncomfortable feeling that there's a better version of you waiting to be discovered. When you stop searching for a self that never existed, something strange and liberating happens. You don't cease to exist. You cease to exist as a problem to be solved. You cease to exist as an eternally unfinished project. You cease to exist as a jigsaw puzzle with crucial pieces missing. Life continues in all its richness and complexity, but without the obsessive narrator commenting on every scene. Experiences flow naturally without someone constantly asking, What does this say about me? Moments happen without being immediately filed away as evidence of who you are or are not. It's like watching an absorbing movie and suddenly realizing that you were so obsessed with analyzing the protagonist's motivations that you missed the whole story. And when you stop analyzing, when you just watch and let yourself be carried away, the movie becomes infinitely richer, more alive, more engaging, more real. You still make decisions, but they arise naturally from circumstances, like a tree growing organically toward the light. You still have clear preferences, but they don't carry the suffocating existential weight of defining who you are forever. You still feel intense emotions, but they pass through you like wind through an open window, without accumulating as evidence of some fixed and immutable emotional identity. There is a fascinating Zen story about a master who asks his disciple, "Show me your original face before your parents were born." The question seems logically impossible, an unsolvable paradox, but that is exactly what it is, showing who you are before all the elaborate construction of identity, before all the layers of self-concept, before even the question, "Who am I?" makes any sense. This original face is not some mysterious thing you find after years of spiritual searching. It is what you have always been when you were not looking for yourself. It is the presence that was here before you started wondering if it existed. It is the natural awareness that observes all thoughts about identity without being touched by any of them. When a small child plays completely absorbed, they are not being authentic. They are simply being. There is no separate I observing the play and approving or disapproving of their performance. There is only the play happening. And in some mysterious and inexplicable way, this is more real, more present, more alive than any elaborate identity they could construct about themselves years later. Freedom doesn't come from finding who you are. It comes from realizing that the question was based on a fundamentally false premise. It's like spending years trying to find the color of silence or the smell of the number 7. The question itself creates a category that simply doesn't exist in reality. And paradoxically, when you stop desperately trying to be someone specific, something genuinely authentic emerges. Not a carefully constructed personality, but a natural presence. Not a true self discovered, but a reality that never needed to be true because it was never false. You respond to situations not based on how a person like me should act, but based simply on what the situation is asking for. You speak not to express your identity, but because there is something genuine to say. You act not to confirm who you are, but because the action arises naturally from the present moment. It is devastatingly simple and at the same time completely revolutionary. It's like discovering that you've spent your whole life desperately searching for the glasses that were on your head the whole time. The search was real, the effort was genuine, the suffering was authentic, but the object was never lost. And when this realization settles deeply, you understand why Buddha smiled under that tree. Not because he found something extraordinary and mystical, but because he realized that there was never anything to find. The search itself was the only thing preventing discovery. Life becomes lighter, but not more superficial. More fluid, but no less intense. More spontaneous, but no less wise. It's as if you've spent years trying to swim against the violent current of a river, and suddenly you realize that you can just let the water carry you, and you discover that the water always knew exactly where to go. When we get tired of trying to discover ourselves, we finally discover that we were never lost. And now I want to know, after everything we've talked about here, what has changed in the way you look at yourself? Tell us in the comments what moment in this video had the biggest impact on you, and especially if you've ever had an experience where you simply forgot to question who you are. I'm genuinely curious to read your thoughts. Let's have a real conversation down here. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You watch the videos. You reflect on each idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to go with this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life, the codes of the White Rabbit are ready for you. The link is in the pinned comment. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.